Eskom's outgoing CEO, Andre de Ruyter, has put it on record that he's not anti-coal, as is popular belief, as he put it. De Ruyter took part in a panel discussion at the Investing in Africa Mining Indaba, which is currently underway in Cape Town, where he said that Eskom will continue using coal whilst exploring opportunities in cleaner energy. This as the role of coal continues to be the centre of discussion in the ongoing energy crisis. Meanwhile, local banks ABSA and Nedbank say that they're still not keen on financing new coal projects.
The journey to a just transition in South Africa is proving to be a tad challenging compared to the rest of the world. With nearly 200 years' worth of coal lying underground, it's difficult to imagine a South Africa where fossil fuels play a lesser role. Power plants in South Africa are fueled by coal, and at stake are the carbon emissions. At the same time, radically phasing out coal will impact on communities and jobs. Eskom CEO has set the record straight, saying he is not anti-coal.
There's this narrative that Eskom management under my leadership has been anti-coal, that we want to move away from coal, and the fact of the matter is that that's devoid of all truth. We will remain a large consumer of coal for a very long period of time to come. The last unit at Kusile is scheduled to shut down in 2071 only. But the fact of the matter is that we have in fact been non-compliant with government policy. We have not been compliant with ILP 19, not because we've been accelerating the shutdown, but because we've waited longer than ILP 19 has said we should shut these stations down. So the facts, I think, disprove the narrative that we are somehow anti-coal, but the number of calls that I get from minerals processors, from manufacturers saying, do you have green energy available, because we are losing market share internationally. We cannot sell our processed commodities internationally because of an attributed carbon footprint, is a massive challenge.
Even though the rest of the world is moving towards renewable energy to preserve the environment, the role that coal plays, particularly in times of crisis like we have seen in Europe, is unavoidable. However, banks still seem unconvinced, saying they will not be funding any new coal projects.
The bank made a decision to continue supporting its existing coal clients that have been operating in South Africa until they transition their operations themselves. So whilst we have an energy policy which is quite clear in terms of the bank's own commitments, we have also made a commitment to support existing clients and not take on new clients in the thermal coal space.
We're open for business, but there are strict guidelines in terms of the equator principles, in terms of how we fund, and I think you'll find we're really focused in terms of our renewable funding. That's where the emphasis is. We've done over 40% of all the renewables in this country in South Africa, and that's what we want to really focus on.
Exxaro envisages that by 2050 its coal will be mined efficiently and that its coal mines will be powered by renewable energy, but that fossil fuels itself will still be sold and burned by its customers. The mining company believes there's enough space for both fossil fuels and renewable energy to coexist.
I believe the world needs to see that the mix is important. So even the financiers, everybody needs to understand it's not only one silver bullet that you need to support to get to the solution. It's a package, and then you need to transition that to the top. So I think the holistic business approach, even with the mining Indaba, it's not only one solution that can create the future for us as human beings on living on this world. We need to work together, legal, finance, people of South Africa, to make sure that this all works together.
Diabosito, SABC News, Cape Town.
Meanwhile, the 14th annual Alternative Mining Indaba, under the theme A Just Energy Transition, Unlocking Community Potential and Participation, is drawing to a close tomorrow. For a little bit more on this, we're now joined by Daile Judge, who's the Program Director for Oxfam in Southern Africa. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
All right, talk to us a little bit about how the alternative mining Indaba has been going this year.
Well, the alternative mining Indaba has been a really important space for organizing. And we think that Africa needs to be in a space where they're thinking inclusive and sustainable economies, especially, in uplifting their lives and livelihoods of the citizens in Africa. And as you know, Africa is a continent that is very, very rich in resources in terms of our land, our water, oil and gas, and minerals. And these are really essential and needed in the global market in terms of achieving that global prosperity. But we also note that the economic growth rates in African countries, especially those that are rich in resources, is very, very low. And so the alternative mining Indaba is looking to see how Africa can use its resources to catalyze growth, to catalyze development, to catalyze productivity, and reverse some of the things that we are seeing currently, where we have a lot of energy poverty. For example, we do have about 700 million people in Africa that are not able to have access to energy. And worse still, they also have to live in environments that are degraded because of mining. And so the alternative mining Indaba is trying to look at how we can be part of the solution of dealing with this contradiction that we have of having massive resources and yet having a massive number of population that is categorized as poor and not being able to have a safe and secure livelihood.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about the solutions just now, but have you been able to identify the causes of this disconnect between the wealth of the country in terms of minerals and the poverty of the people in those countries?
I think that there could be a number of causes that could be attributed to this. And I just want to point out one that we think is very significant. So looking into the past, statistics indicate that Africa loses about $100 million a year in illicit financial flows. And essentially, the bulk of this is coming from, the mining sector through undisclosed contracts, for example, and UNEC have done a really, really good report on this. But also, when you look into the future, you also want to see, the opportunities that are there. And the energy sector is going to be influenced by technology. There's going to be an estimation of about 85 million additional jobs, earmarked for the energy sector. And when you reflect on the outcomes of COP27, for example, there are billions of dollars that are lined up for the energy sector. But the question is Africa having this on its agenda? Is it central in positioning Africa? And what is Africa's position? What are the policy choices? What are the governments, thinking and making and taking as policy choices? And who is influencing these political policy choices as well? So the fact that we've lost so much in the past and that we are not pre-positioning properly, for the future, could significantly be contributing to this contradiction where we are not in a position to negotiate, fair deals, or later on demand accountability and transparency for that which is due to us as resource-rich countries. And it is because of this that we think spaces like Indaba's, like the alternative mining Indaba, provide an opportunity for us to not just critique the challenges, but also to sort of learn, provide the good practice, build a body of knowledge, and get invested in shaping policy choices by promoting, ways in which governments can ensure a fair distribution of resources. They can look at protection of the environment and securing of the rights of the communities and citizens.
All right, I think you've given us some clues for my next question, and that's to ask, at this alternative mining Indaba, have some solutions come up to deal with this inequality in rich, resourced countries?
Yes, quite some important solutions have come up, and one of them, which is very central, is ensuring that communities are centered. communities have the lived experiences of extraction, and half the time their lived experience is devoid of benefit sharing. There are issues of displacement, and if you look at the case of Mozambique, which we're discussing this morning, we also have resource wars and conflicts, and essentially communities are really surviving and coping with different forms of inequality. And we think that they are not engaged, and often they don't contribute to the policy processes that I spoke about earlier. And so we think that one of the key solutions is for us, as civil society, to stand what will I say, in solidarity with the causes of the communities. So the Indaba then presents itself as a really important opportunity where communities and CSOs can sort of reassert their voice, they can build the agency, they can mobilize the people power, against some of these issues that prioritize profits over the people. And I think that it's also a collective space, and that's a solution in itself, having collective action where we are holding governments and corporates to account in the sector by calling out some of the things that are really not working, and calling out some of the things that are creating adverse impacts on the mining sector and the legacies that they have.
All right, so whilst you're having this alternative mining Indaba, those governments and those corporates are next door. So the question is, are you talking to yourself, or are you getting some representation in the other mining Indaba, and are some of them coming to yours?
We have seen a couple of organizations that are in the main Indaba that have come to our mining Indaba. And we've also attempted to ensure that we are filtering through a process of informing, the main Indaba. One of the ways that we've done that is to have bilateral conversations with some of the key stakeholders that are in the main Indaba. But over and above that, we've also tried to work with our counterparts in the media, for example, yourselves, to ensure that the voice and the agency, that is being built out of the alternative Indaba is really, filtering through even to the delegates that are at the main Indaba, and that some of the demands around policy reforms, some of the demands around transparency, accountability, and just the need for governments to be responsive to these challenges is actually brought to the fore. So using various avenues like media, bilateral engagements, and presentation of the position of the alternative mining Indaba that is going to be done at the end of the Indaba is really critical ways that we've been trying to engage, and ensuring that the engagement doesn't end just here, that when we go back, we should be able to have a conversation with the leaders in government. And for example, at the alternative Indaba yesterday, we were privileged to speak to some leaders in government of Mozambique and Zambia. And that in itself is a demonstration of the fact that we are wanting to have as much engagement and filtering of these lessons and recommendations on solutions that would be workable for Africa.
Some might say this is the 14th alternative mining Indaba. So have there been some gains, or is this perhaps a mine that's just too deep to reach?
Gains, yes, and we have to sort of start thinking about what are the quick wins that we're harvesting. I think just the process of getting together and creating that solidarity is a gain in itself, and we need to be able to stand with each other's causes. Number two is that in the exchange of knowledge, there is a process of building human capital so that we are increasing awareness on these issues. We are increasing on the skills that people have. We're increasing on the information, that communities and civil society can work with in terms of engaging on these issues, as much as raising awareness. One of the approaches that Oxfam uses in such spaces is to foster the aspect of free, prior, and informed consent. And we have been able to bring the communities together that have appreciated this kind of approach in terms of pre-positioning them for engagement with government, not just, sort of engagement for the sake of it, but that which translates into meaningful participation and leadership. And so it's sharing of those stories that sort of equip us to be able to deal with some of the issues that are really, really huge and complex. And lastly, the gains is that we are also building a critical mass of actors that are equipped, with the right tools and also the right tactics, and that can access different spaces and have those conversations, however difficult they are, with corporates and governments. So we cannot achieve this without that critical mass, and this is a point of building the collective and the agency on the issues.
All right, and that's where we'll have to leave it for this evening. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for standing in solidarity with the communities and civil society movements as they want to, continually keep corporates and governments in check on the impacts on communities and the environment, and also the realities that people face as a result of mining.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, that's Oxfam's Program Director in Southern Africa, Daile's Judge, talking to us at the Alternative Mining Indaba, which is running parallel to the Invest in Africa Mining Indaba in Cape Town. And as she said, she wants communities affected by mining, civil society, non-state actors to be given a voice so that the communities in which these mines are developed are benefiting in one way or another, and that citizens don't stay in poverty in countries that are rich in minerals.